Hi, the Mudbrooker here. I like old cookbooks, and some of the best cookbooks that you can find in secondhand stores are these self-published ones. Sometimes, like this one, they're a school project. Sometimes they're put out by church groups like the Knitting Society of Our Lady of Blessed Acceleration. Sometimes they're put out by other groups. This was printed by the Island City Food Co-op. Usually you get a bunch of people together and they'd all submit recipes. You type them up and send them to a local printer and run off a few hundred copies of these and sell them for whatever purpose you can sell them for. I was flipping through this one at the store and I came across this recipe and I absolutely had to buy the book. Hopefully you can see that. Pork cake. That's right, pork cake. Now, I have not made this recipe. Normally, when I do a cooking video like this, I try out the recipe first and make sure everything's going to work out right. But this time I'm just going to wing it. I've never done it before, and we're going to see what happens. First, as always, the most important ingredient of any recipe is alcohol. And today, I'm going to have some Bushmills Red Bush. I would like to thank my patrons on Patreon: Aileen Edge, Benedict Riggers, Kay's Kist, Damian Bamer, Dan Sturgill, Joy Jones, Leo, Randy Dorn, Sue Beck, Theodore Engelke, Tiarna Jenkins, Valentine Tolman, and my newest patron, Rudy Valvano. Here's to you guys. Your support is greatly appreciated. Gotta love them Irish. Anyway, I'm going to read this through to you. 1 pound of fat salt pork, chopped so fine as to be almost like lard. Pour upon it 1/2 pint of boiling water. Add 2 cups dark brown sugar, 1 cup dark molasses, 1 teaspoon of soda stirred into the molasses, 1 pound raisins, 1 pound dates chopped. Stir it in enough flour to make it the consistency of common cake batter. Season with 1 teaspoon each cinnamon, cloves, allspice, and nutmeg. Bake in a moderate oven. Now, whenever you come across a recipe that says bake in a moderate oven or a slow oven, it's an old recipe because those terms were used for wood cook stove ovens. But let's get started. I'm going to start off by chopping up my salt pork in my food processor. Salt pork is basically brined, unsmoked bacon. Even if you've never heard of it, most grocery stores carry it. And I got a pound of that here. This is all sliced, and I will break them up a little bit here and hit them in the old food processor. I like this old food processor. The motor on this thing is larger and more powerful than the motor in my washing machine. I kid you not. Let's see. That's not fine enough yet. Come on, you. There it goes. Might have threw a little too much in there all at once. Oh, that's got it. Get that put aside. Got too many things going on all at once here. And that is definitely chopped fine so as to be like lard. Get this out of the way. Okay. Now, hopefully I can reach this without knocking things over. We pour upon it 1/2 pint boiling water, which is 1 cup. Let me give that just a little bit of a stir. Reading through the recipe, this sounds a lot like mincemeat as far as the flavor, and I'm thinking that I will end up with something rather like a mincemeat pie, only a cake. There's my teaspoon of baking soda and my cup of molasses. Stir that into the molasses. And I notice it doesn't tell you a time. You're just going to have to figure that out on my own. I'm guessing, like most cakes, it'd be 35 to 45 minutes, but it's hard to say. Okay, in goes the molasses. That out of the way. The brown sugar. One pound of chopped dates. These are 2 8-ounce bags. 1 pound of raisins. And there's my spices. A teaspoon each of nutmeg, clove, allspice, and cinnamon. I'll give this a bit of a mixing. And I will start adding the flour. I'll start off with 1 cup and see how far that gets us. I'm guessing this is going to take about 2, maybe 2.5 cups. But again, that's just a guess. And once I get it stirred up, I'll have to try and figure out what size cake pan I'll need. There's 2 cups. I'll give that about half to start. Yeah, she's still pretty runny. smells really good. So hopefully this will be something edible. But then again, something called pork cake, you can never really tell. It's listed in the main dishes section of that little cookbook. So apparently it's meant as a meal. I would say we're getting pretty close to what the recipe is calling for. I'll give it just a sprinkling more. Yep, I'd say we're about there. That was a bit less than 2 cups of flour. Once I figure out what I need for a cake pan, I'll be back and we'll get this underway. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but a moderate oven is 350 degrees, and I have my oven preheated. I went with a 10 by 13 cake pan, and I greased and floured it because you usually do that for cakes, even though it doesn't really specify in the recipe. So we'll get this into the pan, get her into the oven, see what happens. I went with a 10 by 13 because I didn't want this too thick. I don't think this will get any real rise because there's no leavening, but the baking soda might make it rise a little bit because molasses is a bit acidic, and as the soda neutralizes the acid in the molasses, it'll produce a bit of gas and hopefully give this a little bit of rise. And we'll see what we get. I'm going to put this in for 30 minutes to start with, and then I'll check on it. I'm guessing, 30 to 45 minutes, probably closer to 45. I'll see you in a little bit, and we'll see what this turns out to be. Alrighty, it's been 35 minutes, and we'll have a look here. That looks pretty wet yet. We'll give it the toothpick test, actually a skewer. And it doesn't come out clean, so no, that's nowhere near done yet. I'll give her another 10 minutes, we'll come back and see what we get. It smells wonderful though. Okay, I checked this the first time at 35 minutes, and it was nowhere near done. I gave it another 10, but I didn't film it. It still wasn't done. I gave it another 15, so right now we're at an hour's worth of cooking time. And, let's see if you can see that. I'll do her again. It looks like it's done. It seems to be set, and it's got a little bit of springiness to it. Kind of hard to say what kind of texture this should have because I've never done it before. But the skewer comes out clean, so I think we're done. This did rise some in the oven. Like I said, I think that was probably because of the interaction of the baking soda and the acid in the molasses. It's a little bit warm yet, but I'm not going to wait any longer because this stuff does smell amazing. I'll cut myself a piece here and see what we get. First piece is always tough to dig out of any pan, but they come out pretty good. can see the edge there. It's got a pretty heavy texture to it, kind of like a brownie-like texture. And we'll see how it tastes. Come here, you. That is amazingly good. I was right, it is a lot like mincemeat, like a mincemeat pie, only it has more of a cakey, brownie sort of texture to it. In fact, next time I make this, and I will definitely make this again, I think what I'll do is add about a cup of finely diced apples and maybe a little bit of finely chopped lemon and orange peel to it. This would be really good with some heavy cream on it. Even though it is listed as a main course, it is more of a dessert sort of thing. It's sweet and spicy, and it's very much like mincemeat pie would be, only in a cake form. I highly recommend you try this out, and I also recommend you look at old cookbooks because there is some really amazing stuff in there. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you give this stuff a try, and I will talk to you next time.